Hey everybody, welcome to All About the Game. This is our 9th episode. My name is Todd Blyleven, joined by my co-host Mike Micucci. How you doing, Mike?
Good, Todd. How you doing?
Good. I missed you last week, man.
A hectic schedule. The schedule's getting hectic, which is good. It's a good thing. No complaining for that. But yeah, just we had our team. We had big tournament we're in, so it had start on Wednesday. We had game on Wednesday, and then one on Thursday, one on Friday. We were off for the fourth. We didn't play, and then came back on Sunday and played. And boys are doing okay, learning a little bit, playing 500 right now, winning some one. The pitching's getting stretched out, which is helping.
Yeah,
But yeah, a lot of interesting conversations in the dugout. Yeah.
I bet.
Now,
I bet.
yeah, about controlling the strike zone and managing their at bats and getting them to understand how to anticipate and slow the game down and expect certain things. I'm a big believer also in moving players around the field. I think it's good for their overall development. I think it's gonna, help them whether they go to college or just, just in high school. You can't just be locked down and hey, I'm a third baseman, and then there's a senior sitting at third and you're a sophomore and got a chance to play. But ground ball's a ground ball. So I like moving them around. But yeah, I'm getting my third baseman the other day said, "Hey, I've never played third before." And I said to him, "Well, you play second, don't you?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I go, "Well, it's a ground ball. It's just over there."
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is good though. It's good for them to see the different angles and
Yeah.
also learn, what that third baseman's responsibility and role is.
That's where it gets them all the time.
Yeah,
Every time the ball kind of goes to the outfield, if they're playing in a position that they're not used to being at, they never know really where to go. They don't know which base to cover. They don't know, which is kind of interesting because I never played first base, but when the ball got hit, I knew where the first baseman was supposed to be,
yeah.
So it's just different, they don't really think about the whole scheme and they're just kind of so consumed in themselves. So this is kind of helping.
I remember and we'll get into who our special guest is today, but one of my first managers in rookie ball was Bill Latchman, the older brother to the
Yeah.
Latchman. And one of the first things he did to us, and we got players from all over the world on this team, from Russia and Nicaragua, Latin America, I mean,
Yeah.
everywhere. So he ends up giving everybody like 8 pieces of paper, and they had the diamond written on them, drawn out, and then it had a different scenario, and it had little X's all over, for the positions. And
Yeah.
they said, if you were a pitcher and a fly ball was hit to right field with a runner on second base, where
There you go.
does everybody go? And
Yeah.
so you have to draw what the center fielder does, what the left fielder does. And it was really interesting because it made your mind think like, geez, all right, so if I'm a second baseman, ball hit there, where's second base is going here? And so anyways, fast forward, now I'm coaching a travel ball team years later. I
Right.
did this to the kids, but I only gave them 3 pieces of paper.
Right.
Man, these kids had no clue
No
where.
clue.
So I agree. I think playing different positions is fun. It's educational.
Yeah. My first year as a field coordinator, you have to stand up in front of, basically when before the day starts, you're in charge of the schedule
Yeah.
of where not only where 170 something players are supposed to be at every second of the day, but where the 45 staff members are supposed to be and what they're supposed to be doing. And I remember my first time doing it, you stand on the board and you have to go over cuts and relays and kind of explain to the group, this is how we're doing cuts and relays because this is how the big league team does it. And this is where every single spot goes. And you're doing it for, guys that have been coaching and, our guests that for 36 years. And you're trying to tell them, hey, this is what he goes here, this is what, yeah, you got to know every single position on that field and where they go. So yeah, but it's been a lot of fun and the kids are awesome.
Right.
They're eyes wide open, ears open, you know, really kind of listening to a lot of things and you can see improvement in the first couple of weeks.
I think it's a great time for all these young amateur athletes to be learning right now, developing their game, getting stronger. Take the pressure off. There's no colleges. I mean, college coaches are looking at videos and things, but they're not at your games.
told
So
a couple parents the other day. Yeah, same thing. I said to a couple parents the other day, hey, this is just kind of like go out and have some fun, learn as much as you can. You got 6 months until the high school season gets started. Hopefully, everything kind of goes. You got about 6 months, to get prepared to put yourself in the best position to stand in front of that high school coach, and that's what your goal should be for your short-term goal should be for right now. Not what, going, getting 2 hits today, but what am I going to look like in 6 months?
yeah, yeah. So talk to us about our guest today.
Yeah, so a longtime friend of mine that I met through a bunch of mutual friends, but Phillip Wellman is coming on the show. We worked together with the Angels. I met him probably the year before that. He was with the Cardinals at the time, and he had a couple mutual friends that I had coached with earlier back in the Cub days. So I kind of heard of this Phillip Wellman guy and the Wellman brothers, and the coaches that I was with the Cubs, they were all from Texas. Phillip was from Texas. So you kind of heard that. And then you start like looking into it. Man, this guy's managed a long time. Holy smokes. He was with the Braves like through the heyday. He was kind of with the Reds. He's been in player development a long time. The guy's managed the upper levels for like more than some people have been in the game. I think he said he's at double A for 20 something years. So yeah, very interesting person to talk to. We kind of hit it off. He was a hitting coach and I was managing in double A and just kind of started talking in the outfield before our series. He had a very, very good team. We didn't have that strong of a team that year, but we had a tendency to play them pretty good. But yeah, just kind of like picking each other's brain, and you kind of develop that relationship, and you start asking questions. They're like, I played the infield in last night in this situation. Kind of, this is what I was thinking. Geez, well, you kind of managed for a long time. Like, what do you think? What have you done? And, he just kind of tells you his experience or whatever. And you're just trying to learn, and it just, then the next year he came over and worked for us. But yeah, wealth of knowledge, a lot of stuff.
Sounds like a good baseball guy.
Nice stories. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm ready. I can't wait to listen to all these and listen to you guys talk and share these stories. So, well, if you're ready, I see that he's in the waiting room.
Yeah, let's do it.
Bring him on.
All right.
Here we go. Hey, welcome back to All About the Game. My name is Todd Blyleven, joined by my co-host Mike Micucci, and today we have a special guest with us, Phillip Wellman, a longtime player manager in the pro level, and I know Mike, you got a great history with Phillip. So, Phillip, take us to the point where you became a professional player. Maybe talk a little bit about your college career and then how you got into coaching, because it looks like you went straight from a player right into coaching at the minor league level.
Yeah, it was. It's been a heck of a journey, and I'm probably one of the most grateful people on the planet to have survived for 36 years in this game so far. But I grew up in San Antonio, Texas, played high school ball there. and was lucky enough to get a chance to go to play college ball at Sam Houston State for a couple of years, and transferred from there and went to Southwestern University in Georgetown back when it was a NAIA school. And we actually had a pretty good club for a couple of years. We went to the NAIA World Series my senior year, and was lucky enough to sign and started my professional career with the Atlanta Braves as a player, and played about 3.5, 4 years, but I kind of knew my time was limited as a player when I looked around and self-evaluated, because as kids 3 and 4 years younger than I was at the time could do things I couldn't do. And when they talked to me about while I was still playing, when they brought up the fact that they'd like to see if I'd be interested in coaching one day, I knew the writing was on the wall. But I'm fortunate and blessed to have gotten to play as long as I did, and went right into that, right into being a rookie ball hitting coach, and did that for 4 years. And then they decided to give me a chance to manage, and I've been managing, and either that or being a hitting coach ever since. It's been a fun ride.
What up, Welly?
Mike?
So we worked together when we were with the Angels, and we'll get into that. But the interesting story we were talking about, I was telling Todd, long before we actually met, when I had a very similar journey and played for about 7 years and went right into coaching, and the two on the staff, the two coaches, the manager and the pitching coach, were all from Texas. And I was obviously from New Jersey at the time, and all I heard was Texas this and Texas that, and there were plenty of Phillip Wellman stories that were there, because Mike Anderson and Julio Garcia and the whole group or whatever. So very interesting that when we finally went head to head in 2012, and I got a chance to meet you, it was nice to talk to you before the game. I always was interested when we were going to play the Cardinals at that time, because you were such a well-respected manager, to be able to, pick your brain in the outfield while the teams are taking BP, or sit around and talk, strategy of the game. Even though our teams are going head to head, it was just, we kind of hit it off, similar passion for the game, kind of a similar background. And then, we got to bring you over to the Angels, which was really nice. Yeah,
that was, that's still one of my, favorite things about the season is just getting to meet new people and watching them and see how they go about their business and learning stuff. I get to the ballpark way too early during the season, but it's either sit at the ballpark or sit in my hotel room. I just soon sit at the ballpark, and I watch other teams' early work, and some may take offense to that, thinking I'm trying to get an edge on their players, but that's not what I'm there for. I'm there to see if these people like yourself or Bogey or any of those guys are doing something that I could steal from you and maybe help one of my players. And I think that's some of the best conversations I've ever had with opposition coaches and managers, is early in the day or standing in the outfield during BP and just talking. And once you get to know somebody as well as I know you, then you can ask, hey, how come you played the infield in there? How come you played, you get a different perspective. And over time, through those conversations, my managing style has probably evolved, just because I've had those conversations and heard things that other managers thought of. And I said, that's pretty sharp. I've never thought of that. And then I try to incorporate it myself. So I think we're all guilty of stealing each other's stuff. So those conversations are very meaningful.
And I think you're always evolving, we had plenty of those conversations even before you came over to the Angels about, your philosophy on playing no doubles, how to manipulate the bullpen, how you manipulate your batting order, the defense, how you read into your numbers, how you put your players in. And there's just so many different conversations. And like you're saying, those are the things that I really enjoy, about the, being in the minor leagues, is going from city to city, and you see certain coaches that are managers you really kind of respected, and you just wanted to like the conversations beforehand and talking to these guys and getting to know them and know what they do.
No, it's really it's interesting listening to you guys talk about it. I mean, it brings back some great memories of just being on the field and smelling the grass. And I don't think there's anything like being, on in the outfield during batting practice and getting a chance to talk with your buddies from other teams, whether it's a coach to a player or a player to a coach. I grew up in the game, and so some of my more fondest memories were being around some of the great players and mostly managers and coaches. I mean, coaches, you guys could talk. And when you get around a coach that really isn't afraid to open up and listen to you guys, I mean, yeah, you just learn so much. So to have a manager like you, Phillip, that has all this experience, and we were touching on a little bit before we started with the amount of players that you had an opportunity to be around and impact, not only, to prepare these guys for the big league level, but also in life too. I mean, you're getting some pretty raw, talented individuals, both on and off the field, the mentorship. Are there any players that come to mind that you've had an opportunity to manage over the years that maybe just had this story to them that they gravitated towards you, and you just felt like you made this impact to help that player, move forward, or just enjoyed watching?
Well, to be real honest, no one particular player comes to mind, but I think Mike would agree with this. The guys we deal with in the minor leagues, if you really want to boil it down to numbers, 95% of them are not going to play in the big leagues. And so when you sit back and you think, God, why am I here? What is my purpose? What is my, developing players that's our job. But you know what? Our job description in the big picture is way bigger than that for me. It's, you have a bunch of kids that, and in all honesty, I don't think I became a very good coach until I had kids of my own. And then I understood what patience was. I understood, what unconditional love was. I understood, a lot of things. And it hit me one day that, as proud as I am of my son and daughter, these are somebody else's jewels. They're somebody's pride and joy. And you know what? You owe them a lot more than just taking them out and teaching them how to field a ground ball. And, my door is always open throughout the year. I've had husbands and wives come in after game, players and their wives come in, they're having trouble. I've had, wives come in that were afraid their husbands were drinking too much or getting off the good path. And, those things are way bigger to me when it's all said and done and my funeral's, done and over and I'm buried. Hopefully people look back and think, you know what, he had an impact on me beyond the game. And I take that responsibility extremely serious. And, last year we won the Texas League, and it was amazing because we had representatives from 9 different countries on our roster. And you know what, that's probably 9 different, or within the clubhouse, each country, being represented, different religions, different backgrounds, different political views. But, we overcame all that. And, it was never an issue. And I think that's the thing I miss right now about being at work is that, you can't watch anything on news without, watching the negative stuff. And we never felt that in the clubhouse. But I think that's part of my job is to create that kind of atmosphere.
And you build those walls around them and you're building that stuff.
Yeah.
We always talked about that. But, going back to your point, 36 years in development, 25 years in development, Todd's gone through it too. It's like our job is, we kind of know what the success rate is, but your job is to develop successful people.
Yeah.
And not just successful baseball players. And there's a lot of stuff that we talk about, on that somebody can take that happened in that clubhouse, that, a conversation that pertains to the game, but it can pertain into everyday life as well. And you're like fathers to these kids, especially depending on the level that you're at. But, and you're in those lower levels. I mean, some of these kids, 16, 17, 18 years old, they're away from home for the first time. You got to deal with all that stuff.
Some of them come from broken families. And, I think I learned this a long time ago. Every player has a key, and it's our job to find that key. And you know, one of the guys I'm closest with that currently plays in the big leagues is Tommy Pham. And you know, in the beginning, to be real honest with you, I wasn't a big fan of Tommy Pham when I had him. I didn't, you know, I didn't like how he carried himself. I didn't like how he spoke, how the words that came out of his mouth. He seemed real bitter and negative. But you know what? I said, something's going on with this young man. And if you take the time to find out his history and find out, you know, he was raised by his mother and his grandmother, and he's got a twin sister. Well, you know what? He never had a male authority figure in his life. And, you know, that's why he if you'd ask him to do something, he'd always give you that look. But once I broke through that ice, Tommy Pham, I love that kid to death now. And I just talked to him a couple of days ago, and he's a fine young man. He's grown, but I also think it's our responsibility. All the things I just told you all about Tommy Pham, I sit him down and told him to his face as well, you know. And he made the adjustments, and he grew and he matured, and now he's a tremendous. Not only is he a great baseball player, he's a tremendous citizen now.
Right.
I think, you know, I mean, those are great stories. And I think when you think about what a minor league baseball player is, you know, most of the time there's this stereotype, and we've gotten it all the time, you know, as former players. Oh, you know, did you make it to the big leagues? Oh, so you weren't professional. And you look at it, you say, well, hold on. Today's minor league player was the very best high school player in that whole area, was the best college player. These were the players that you watched grow up thinking, holy cow, this kid's amazing. Now he's mixed in this bucket of all these other great players. And so the emotional play, I remember as a player going out thinking I was pretty damn good my first year, and then realizing that there's 10 other pitchers that are pretty damn good, and there's all these catchers that are pretty damn good, and all these going, holy cow, I got to play. But it screws around with you emotionally.
Yeah.
So to have coaches and managers there that you can talk to and bounce things off of. I know I had Bill Latchman was my first manager.
Oh, yeah.
He was hard.
Yeah.
Jeff Bannister, you know, I mean, Tom Kochman was probably one of those guys you could run a wall, you know.
Those are all legends too. All legends. The amount of experience you're talking about with those three guys, and how many players they've seen over the years, how many situations they've been in, how many developed.
Well, so Phillip, I mean, your journey of watching players grow, the mentality, the day of analytics, and how that's affected, you know, your overall job in baseball over the years. Where do you see today's athlete compared to the athlete in the 90s or even in the 2000s? You know, and you've seen the training rooms get bigger. Where is today's athlete? Is it built for longevity? Are the analytics too much? I mean, there's a lot of info now these guys have to think about.
You know, first of all, I'm not one of these guys that thinks back when I played it was better, because in reality, you know what, kids today are bigger, stronger, faster, more athletic. You know, we didn't lift during the season. We didn't do any of that stuff. We just went and played and lost our 15, 17 pounds throughout the season. These kids don't do that. And you know, they stay strong throughout the season. And, you know, the strength conditioning program is way better. That we didn't even have a strength conditioning program when I played. The nutrition's better. Everything's better. I'm not going to lie to you. The game, the athletes themselves are better nowadays than we were back in the day. To answer your question twofold is the analytic part of it. I think any data that is applicable that can help develop a player, I have no problem with. Where I have a problem is when you only use analytics to evaluate a player, because now you're turning them into a numbers producer, and you know what, you're ruling out makeup, you're ruling out character, we get to feel their hearts pounding when we go to the mound to talk to a pitcher. We look in their eyes when it's crunch time. We see their pulse. You can hear them breathing. all those things, no computer, no TrackMan, no Rapsodo, no Blast Motion can analyze that stuff. And those are things that are, to me, that are important. Is the analytical data important? Yes. But is it the end all? No. And, for me, a lot of the analytical data, it just validates and verifies what we see with our eyes. Guys who have some experience have seen with their eyes.
So there's a couple interesting points to what you're talking about, because, everybody will say, well, you can't dispute the numbers or whatever, but 300 is not the same across the board.
No.
And I remember having conversations with upper level management at times, and front office people at times on certain guys. And Mitch Moreland was one of the guys that came to mind. Mitch played for me at a couple different levels, but he was hitting 300 at one level. And you know how it is, Welly, when one of the scouts, the pro scouts, comes in to scout your team, to basically start preffing out, the players in the organization, they will basically sit in there. They got to see the players play well to give them the grades to, for trades and all this other stuff and the background that goes with it. Well, Mitch didn't have an incredibly great series, and he's like, I don't see what everybody sees in this guy. And I'm like, this guy can hit. And he's like, well, I didn't see him hit. And my comment to him was, yeah, but the guys that pitched against him this weekend are not even going to make AA, and all the guys that he hits are all going to pitch in the big leagues. He hits the guys that pitch in the big leagues, and he just, he doesn't hit the guys that aren't going to. So his 300 weighed a lot more to me personally, just watching him. Like, I know he's pitching in the big leagues. That guy's not going to pitch in the big leagues. Mitch performs very well against them, doesn't perform against here. And that's something that you absolutely miss if you're just looking at straight numbers,
Yeah, I agree. And to me, that's how I still, evaluate our top prospects that are playing for us, is that, I want to see what Fernando, I want to see what Fernando Tatis does against the top pitching prospects in the league. I don't care what he does against some kid that's about to get released. I want to know what he's going to do against the guys that he's going to play against in another year or two in the big leagues. And you're exactly right. We've used the term, they'll most people will never use it anymore, but I've told front office people, I said, they go, Phillip, he's hitting 300. I said, yeah, but it's a soft 300. And I don't think they understand what that means nowadays, because, a lot of them, don't have the experience of seeing as many players as we've seen. But there is a difference between 300s for anybody, and it's great that somebody's hitting soft 300. I'll take that soft 300 if that's the best he's got. But,
day of the week,
but at the same time, we're trying to evaluate a player to see if he's going to help you win a pennant in the big leagues. So you have to differentiate.
Yeah, I agree. I was with Clint Hurdle a little bit when I was with the Rockies, and I was one of their pro scouts. And I always enjoy listening to Hurdle's post-game recaps and how he would break down quality versus non-quality at bats. So speaking to that, you hardly ever really heard him talk about quality at bats. And when you did, it was usually something that somebody did really well. So, it's really interesting.
Yeah, I was thinking back to when we first met in 2012 in that Springfield team that you had there. And you guys, didn't you win the championship there as well? I think? Yeah. And that team was loaded. I mean, position player-wise, I want to say 6 or 7 of those guys are on the big leagues.
There was even more pitchers that got to the big leagues.
The whole starting rotation was all – it was Martinez, it was Rosenthal, it was Maness, but there was the whole rotation was in there. There was a couple power arms coming out of there, and Wong was on the team. And the best player, God rest his soul, had the tragedy on the team, Martinez, right? Oscar Tavares, yeah. I mean, that was and I remember my club, who had one big leaguer on the team, and then going up against your club. And the one day we went 10 or 11 innings, and I was pulling out all the stops, and I kept telling my pitching coach, I said, at some point, we're going to have to try and scratch something across, because at some point they're just deeper than we are, and we're going to get to a soft spot, and then it's not going to be good for us or whatever.
Yeah.
But
I remember that. I remember that game. Telling you the next day, man, I enjoyed watching you manage that night because you were pulling out everything, and it was beautiful.
We had the matchups, we had the bullpen going, we were double barreled down there, and I said, at some point, it's just going to run short for us.
Yeah, that was a fun year.
Yeah,
that was a really fun year.
Yeah, that's even on that, in being in the other side of the dugout, it's enjoyable to go and watch and be like, wow, these guys are going to be, because you sit there and that's basically what you tell yourself, man, these guys are going to be in the big leagues in like 6 months, 3 months, tomorrow.
Yeah. Yep.
You guys touched on, the analytical play in today's game and the ability the intangibles that a scout or a coach has to really kind of in full circle identify what that player is either going through or not. I'm friends with a lot of owners of these big analytical companies, and we have conversations around their metrics. And I'm just a student of that game, and with the business I run, with the Scout Hub and the app we're developing. But one of the questions that, my dad and I have talked about over the years, and I had this conversation with this owner, was, they're developing software that can identify mechanical, power and the torque of the swing and create all these 3D imagery. And it's great. It's awesome to know that as a player on the mechanical side, the foundation. But I asked him the question, I said, well, how does this help that hitter go up to the step in the box when that pitcher is struggling with his breaking ball, knowing the guy's got a nasty hammer, but he's struggling the last 2 batters? How does that help that batter attack the hitter, or in that game situation, the instinctual play that a coach or a manager watches day in and day out, knows when a hitter is 2-2 in a count and maybe doesn't, it gets a little soft on its front side or just trying to put the ball in the play, and he goes, well, it doesn't. And I think that's the problem with today's analytics, is that it provides a great baseline for what you're able to do body-wise. It identifies certain holes in your mechanics, but it can't tell the story on whether you can play or not. And I love hearing that come out of you guys' mouths, that you got guys like a Mitch Moreland that, he struggled against cruddy pitching, but when the game's on the line and that heart rate is bumping, this guy who do you want up there? The guy that's got great mechanics, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Or the guy that can really step in and let it
guy
fall.
that can slow the game down in his mind.
None of that analytical stuff measures the will to compete, or just pure intestinal fortitude. And, it's like they ask us in spring training or we have discussions and they say, this guy, if he's got tremendous spin rate and pitcher B doesn't have tremendous spin. Okay, we can see that. We know that. We call that life back in the days. Late life. You could, we didn't have anything to measure, but we knew what it was. And, now my question always is, well, how do we get pitcher B to get more spin rate? And that's the stumping question of the day. I think that's your point. Having that information is good, but if it's not applicable and it doesn't help us teach or develop, then that's where I get a little sideways sometimes. I know his spin rate's low, but tell me how to increase his spin rate, and then we can talk. But to me, that's just kind of useless information if you don't have a way to fix it. Or something that's applicable for us.
From just strictly a player development side,
yes.
It's not really a useful box for us to have,
And
from a scouting perspective, it's a little bit different.
Yes.
That's different.
Even with all the
spin rate, he doesn't. The guy with spin rate's probably going to perform better. But from like a strictly a development side, and you talk about the will to compete, competing is not mean trying hard.
Right.
And we talk about this all the time. We can get anybody to go out there and actually try hard, but the competing is at some point to have this mental toughness to just be like, I don't care what I have in the batter's box, I'm going to beat you. You're not going to get it by me,
Well, and you look at gameplay versus practice play and showcase play. And today, I mean, I've got a 16-year-old son, Dylan, he works with you, Mike, going to be 17. But, you look at when he goes to a showcase and he goes and he hits BP in front of a bunch of college coaches, or he's, catching, he's throwing down. It's not the same as when he plays in the game. You're seeing a totally different beast and animal when you cross that white line than trying to manufacture that gameplay mentality. So these young kids are getting tested, and a lot of these decisions are being made on what those test results are on these analytical sensories and everything else. So how many coaches and scouts really know what it feels like to play and to get that heart rate up? So I think there's a loss in translation in that. It's good to hear you guys talk about it.
And it's, what players are going through now is very much what the NFL Combine is.
Right.
Yeah.
And these guys hire, strength coaches to help them improve all their combine numbers, so they can, elevate themselves in the board. But at the end of the day, they also know how to play football, and they have to do certain things. There is tryout mode. We see it from Dominican players a lot when they first sign. They're going from camp to camp to camp. Welly's seen it years, and they're in tryout mode, or then they get, where they're in showcase mode and they're out there and they know it doesn't really matter like how I interact. I got to go out and kind of show I have power. I can show I can throw it hard. They'll figure out how to get me to like be accurate. And then there's going out and playing, and you got to actually know what you're doing. And when you're going out and playing, I mean, Dylan and I go back. That's how we met, and we get to a certain point when we're working, and now it's like, it's not about his mechanics. It's all about his mental approach, and I'm trying to get him out. I'm trying to see what he's thinking. We start firing some stuff out there, and I'm trying to put him in all these different situations so he's prepared when he gets in there to compete in the game, and not just look good in batting practice.
Well, that's we've talked about this before. I think I told you I saw a kid come in I do lessons with a shirt on that said train more, play less, and I told him and his dad I disagree with that. I said, that's what we're creating, or we're creating practice players now, a showcase mentality that they can go, they run fast, they have good exit velo, they put a radar on them, they're impressive, and then the game starts and they can't play. And that's what we need to. That's why I say analytics can't be the end all, because some of those kids put up incredible numbers, and you get fooled or you get tricked on them, and then you put them in a game and they can't bunt, or they can't move a runner, or they can't hit and run, or with the infield back they can't put a ball in play. But in BP they got 80 power. Well, that doesn't win you ball games a lot of times. It makes for an impressive, practice player, but I think that's part of our responsibility too. That's changed a lot, and even in AA. Last year was my 20th year in AA, and I found out more and more often now I'm responsible for teaching them how to play more than I was 10, 15 years ago. 10 or 15 years ago, you're kind of trying to polish and finish off a player and make sure he's ready for the big leagues. But now we're really having, whether it's pitchers or position players, we're having to teach the game a lot more now. And there's no doubt those kids are extremely talented, but they, for the most part, they don't understand how to play the game properly.
Yeah, and for years, not to get off the subject, but there was no analytics, and it was all just experience and eyes. And notice it, we're not saying that that's right either, or there's no right or wrong. It's just, there's a blend to everything that you do. And, but you're right. You definitely, kids don't play as much.
Right.
Remember when we were with the Angels, and we would talk about even all those conversations when you were managing the AA team, and we would have those conversations on the phone. It was always, the most important thing that happens is the game at 7:00.
Right.
So if you think, and our philosophy was, if you think the best thing for your team at that point is to not do anything so they can perform at 7:00, then do that. And if you think it's having this big, long, elaborate workout, then do that. Whatever it is, but 7 o'clock was the most important thing, because honestly, when you're in the minor leagues, those games you're playing, that's practice.
Yep.
That's the most realistic practice that you're going to have. Trying to create some practice beforehand and value that more than the game, which is what that kid's doing and some of these organizations are doing, is not, is definitely, I think they're missing out on the boat.
Yeah, if you're really in tune with player development, that's exactly, we play 140 practice games in preparation to play in the big leagues.
Mm-hmm.
That's our job. And, and I don't argue that early work and some extra work is not important. It is important, especially for guys who are struggling. You're trying to correct a flaw, but it's like, I've told GMs before, I've never had a GM call me and say, hey, who's your best early work player? That's not what they want to know. They want to know who your best outfielder is that can come up and help right now. But do you need to go out and work? Absolutely. But I agree that it's like studying. You can study all you want, but if you don't pass the test, what good is that? You got to go out and pass the test, and you get 140 chances at it in the minor leagues. And if you grow,
the average player before he goes to the big leagues is going to have 500 games.
Yep.
He's going to have 500 practices before he gets.
And that's changed. That's changed from 20 years ago too. Back when Todd was pitching, in the Carolina League, I was managing the Carolina League. That guys were getting 1,000 games, and before, player development's changed, and we've had to adapt. I mean, there's a lot more money being passed out, and they're in a hurry to get guys to the big leagues now, which I understand. You want a return on investment. So to me, that just magnifies our job. And Mike, you and I have talked about this before. As long as there's a how in this game, then the game's going to need people like us that can go out and teach the how. And you have to do it at an accelerated pace now. Mm-hmm. And guys are getting to the big leagues now in a year and a half, 2 years, where back when we played, you could plan on playing at every level for a full year most of the time.
Yeah, especially where you're at too with the Padres. I mean,
yes.
It's pretty well known. The Padres are very aggressive. Okay, unbelievably, if not the best farm system, definitely in the top 3 farm systems in baseball. The youngest farm system in baseball. I think they had the youngest team in A-ball last year, and they continue to have young players. And then you're seeing them, they start surfacing to the big leagues at 19, 20, 21 years old, and they're some of the best players too. So,
it's I was looking at
you guys and AJ, and I know AJ over there and what's going on over there, that they have such a good farm system and have such a good development.
They've done a great job with their international scouting, with their pro scouting and trades, and with the amateur scouting, and it keeps you very interested and in tune with things, because I look and see on that 60-man squad they got going to summer camp now, there's like 11 guys that pitch or played for the mighty Amarillo Sod Poodles last year, and there's going to be a couple of them who are going to have a chance of pitching or playing in the big leagues last year, having never played in AAA. So, that's good. And, they're 20 years old, and it's exciting, and it reminds me. I've told AJ before, it reminds me of when I was with the Braves back in the into the 80s and 90s. Man, you'd lose a pitcher to AAA, but the next guy they'd send up from A-ball into AA, you go, whoa.
Yeah.
This guy should have never been in A-ball anyway. He should have been here the whole time. That's how it was. They sent up 2 pitchers in Mackenzie Gore and Patino this year, and I hate to say it, but they were better than 3 or 4 of the starters I'd had there the whole year. And I'm like, man, it'd have been nice to have these guys. But you know what? They needed to be in A-ball. They needed that time to develop. But they do. We lose somebody and they reload with somebody that's as good or better.
And good players always kind of finish where they're supposed to be.
Yes.
Whether you started them too high and they didn't have a good year and they kind of finish in A-ball or whatever, or you started them too low and they prove that they're supposed to be higher. Players will kind of tell you where they need to be.
Yeah, they'll dictate it.
Yeah. So before we, I got a couple interesting stories.
All right, let's hear them. For
Welly. So Welly, you might remember this one. So as a field coordinator, you try and stay in tune to the games that are going on. So you're trying to cover, 6 or 7 different affiliates. You try and stay locked in down on what's going on down in the Dominican, and you get in the midsummer, or even like right before school gets out, there's a lot of those 11 o'clock games that guys are playing and this and that. And I'm trying to get in touch with Welly, and then he's not answering the phone, and it's unlike Welly not to answer the phone. I look through the schedule. Oh, he's got an 11 o'clock game. So now I go to the computer. I turn the computer on. I'm going to watch the game, and I'm going to call the trainer. So I call the trainer. I'm like, hey, where's Welly at? Well, he's in the dugout. I'm like, yeah, can you run the phone down to him? I really need to tell him something. So he runs the phone all the way down to him, whatever. Willie gets on the phone. He's like, hey, what's up? What's going on? I said, hey, I just wanted to let you know that you look a lot thinner in white than you do in your grays. Well, he's like, we're going to play here.
Man, I was trying to lock in and be serious, and then I get a phone call from you. I thought you had some big news for me. Basically, all you were telling me is I'm still fat, so that's all right.
Oh, jeez.
Nah, but we always had fun like that. He would call me up and ask, hey, did you watch that game tonight? I'm like, no, I didn't watch the game tonight. He's like, the AA team's the most important team around here.
Yeah, I know you had about 6 clubs to take care of, but you should have been looking at the AA game most of the time anyway. But you know what? That's still things didn't work out real well for me with the Angels, but that was still one of my most memorable years. I had fun. I was surrounded by good people that I really liked and enjoyed. I still go back into Little Rock, and I still have good memories of that place. And that was a fun year, and
we had a good staff. Good staff.
Great staff,
good people with the Angels, and Bogey was around, so we got to. As a special advisor, how great is that to have Tim Bogart to be a special advisor to go around and bounce ideas off.
Yeah, it's kind of like now when Trevor Hoffman shows up to town a couple times a year, and it's always a pleasure, and it's great. And once you after a game, you've had your few minutes of serious talk with him and about the game, and then it's time to light up a cigar and have a beer, and then that's when the fun really starts with him, because he's an amazing human and got great stories, and he's so helpful to those kids when he comes to town and encouraging, and I think the same thing. Trevor's got kids, and he knows what it's like to go through the minor leagues. He started out as a shortstop, and he's a Hall of Fame pitcher. He knows what these kids are going through, and I think they really relate to him. But those are, again, it goes back to what we're saying, the friendships, the bonds, the conversation you have before games and after games. That is, when I'm done and retired, that's what I'm going to miss the most, I think, is the camaraderie. And, I'll always miss the competition. That's what I'm missing right now. I don't miss getting on a bus and riding 8 hours right now at all. I said, but you know what I miss? I miss going out for the national anthem and having that feeling that we're about to strap it on and get after it. Yeah. And I right now, I'm filling my baseball life with my son is managing a Texas collegiate summer team in Amarillo, and I watch that every night. And I'm not going to lie to you. I'm basically watching my son to see if he knows what he's doing managing, and he's so far he's made his old man pretty proud. He actually had a 12 or 13 inning game the other night, had to make a few moves, and he did all right. So, that's where I'm getting my competitive feel right now. But I have never yearned for normalcy so much, as I do right now. And hopefully we get through this and we get back to playing baseball. I miss being out on the field throwing BP in 105-degree weather.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. Well, I think as a country, as a world, I think that's what we're all hoping for, is to get back to normal, or some sort of normal, and get our athletes back out, our coaches back out, our mentors. back out and, and really think about the impact that you guys had and have now, Phillip and Mike, working with younger players in the amateur sector. It really goes a long way. I mean, we send our kids to school. The teachers, become an extension of your house and how these kids are being raised. So not only are we being affected, but these players and men and women are being affected too. But I've really enjoyed listening to you guys talk. And Phillip, I'd love to have you back on. This is our 9th episode, so congratulations to number 9.
Wow.
But we really appreciate you being on the show.
I'd be happy to come back anytime you want. I love, it's like you said earlier, man, these managers and coaches can talk, and I love talking baseball.
We could sit around and tell some stories and get
some we probably shouldn't tell, but it's all right.
Well, thanks, Welly. Thanks for coming on. It was awesome to talk to you. Good to see you're doing well, and stay safe out there, and we'll be at it pretty soon.
Yeah. It's good seeing you, Coach. Good meeting you, Todd. And, hopefully we get back to this thing here pretty soon. But thank y'all for having me on. I really appreciate it.
You got it. Thanks, Welly.
All right. See y'all.
Bye-bye. Welcome back to All About the Game. Man, what a guy. Thanks for bringing him on, Mike. That was awesome.
He's pretty good. We could talk to him. We definitely need to have him back on. I mean, some of these guys, but this the experience and the amount of you always say, oh man, there's a situation I've never seen before. Boy, I've never seen that happen again. I mean, think, is there anything he hasn't seen on the field? I mean, I'm pretty sure there's something, but man, think of all the games he's managed. Thousands and thousands and thousands of games, not just so all the situations he's possibly gone through. But he was awesome, to have as a manager of one of our teams. I know when we were with the Angels together. And it was so much fun, and you can have so much fun with him, like the story about calling him in the dugout and stuff like that. But I used to play, mess around with him all the time. And he was just, very competitive, as you can tell. When you're at this level, who's not competitive?
Right.
Burn me, we couldn't beat them. They were loaded, and it would just burn me that we could not beat.
What's so great is that here's yet another example of how small the baseball community is and how great it is. When you really just allow yourself to let people in and to acknowledge that you don't know everything, and it's a constant game of learning and appreciation, and you get a chance to listen to the connection that you and him had, and then his stories, and then him being a dad, and then the mentorship piece. I mean, I think my hairs were standing up on my arm just listening to him talk about how, wives would come in and talk to him. And it goes beyond just that manager sitting in the corner of the dugout, and you've been there, and watching the game. There's so much more that goes into it. So it was awesome to listen to him talk.
Yeah. You really build a connection with the players, especially as an affiliate coach and the manager, where you're there and with them, and you're in the trenches and you're on the buses, and you build this relationship with them throughout the year. And so when things aren't right, when stuff's going wrong. And that generally it's the first, is everything okay at home? Is everything going all right? You got to dig into the personal thing, because it affects how they play on the field. It affects their mood in the clubhouse. It affects a lot of different things. But I think at the forefront, it's because you want them to perform, but in the back, you still care about them, and something that, it's funny, I believe it was either Bill or it was Marcel Latchman that made this comment, and it's when I was with the Angels, and it stuck with me. And it probably made it to you when you were over there, but they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, and it's so true. Like they could care less how much information you can possibly give them until they know you care about them. Once you know, then they'll listen to you all day long,
Right. Well, we thank you again for bringing them on. We have episode 10 coming up, and I'm super excited to get this episode under our belts. I can't believe when we started this just with a conversation of saying, hey, let's do a podcast. And
yeah, I know some people, you know some people, let's do some.
Let's do it.
The funny thing is when I called Welly to see if he wanted to do it, his first reaction was, I've been waiting for you to call. What's taking so long?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
But hey, have a great week.
You too.
And thanks again for bringing them on, and look forward to seeing more on your brand and MikeMicucciBaseball.com.
Yeah, make sure you go to the Scout Hub. It's really starting to take off, and those cards are coming in. You can get your players evaluated there. That's just a great resource, so check it out.
Yeah, appreciate it. All right, brother.
All right.
All right, y'all. Be safe.